Really simply, I had a great upbringing. I was very fortunate. My parents were pretty well off, so I got to go to a private school and travel the world a little bit before I was 18. I lived in about 10 states growing up before high school or through high school. Um, Got to do foreign exchange in Australia, England, and Jamaica, so it was fantastic. So I feel like that's probably why I can kind of get along with anyone. I feel like I know something that's in common with everybody. I went to school at Trinity University. I did not get into my first choice, which I believe things work out the way they're supposed to, so I didn't over stress that. And I flipped the coin between about 16 schools, and the school that I ended up going with was Trinity University here in San Antonio. And when I was at the end of my first semester freshman year, my dad called me, and it's probably the pivotal thing that changed me is said, hey, somewhere in the last 6 months, mom and dad are getting divorced, and they'd been married for about 34 years, and the attorneys had spent the money for college, and so I needed to either drop out of college and go to work or work my way through college, just let him know what he wanted me to do, or let him know what I wanted to do. And so I'd already kind of met a few friends, and I had too much pride and ego to drop out, so I got some student loans and worked my way out through college. And, I'd already had a pretty awesome upbringing. We traveled and skied and scuba dived and all that fun stuff, and so I knew what I wanted to do in my life, I thought, at least, from a standpoint of higher earnings. Prior to that point, I was probably a misfit as far as I was always a B or C student, never really applied myself, never really pushed myself too hard in sports, which I regret. But anyways, that was probably the turning point. And so I worked my way through college. I did get it completed in 4 years. When I graduated, I thought I was going to be a stockbroker. In 2000, the stock market tanked for the tech stocks. I graduated in May of 2001, and I couldn't get a job in stockbroking. The truth is, I wasn't a great student in the first place. So I took a few months to figure out what I could get a job in. I ended up in insurance sales. I walked in the very first day of my job with one of my first mentors named Mike Redondo, and sat down and said, hey, dude, I got to make some money pretty quickly. I've got student loan payments coming up, and I have to make money as a full commission job. He said, well, I'll tell you the secret to success in sales, but no one ever does it, so don't waste my time. And so I argued with him a couple more times, and at the end of the day, he finally said, look, Josh, all you got to do is talk to 10 people a day, every day, and you'll die rich. And I said, well, that sounds good. So I just started calling about 100 people a day right out of the gate. Didn't know any better, and so I started making lots of calls. And very quickly, I was top in my office as far as insurance sales, but I was talking about death and dying every day, which is not fun for anybody. And so I ended up, about 2 years later, I got an offer by one of my friends who was already in the mortgage industry to move over. So I moved over to the mortgage industry in about 2003 and applied the same logic of just talk to more people than the next guy and you'll do pretty well, and made an incredible run. And so I've been in the business for about 18 years now. I've been top 3 people in my city for the last at least 10 years. Thank you. It's not that hard, I guess. What I mean by that is not take away from anybody else. It's just, if your calendar says make calls, make calls. If your calendar says go see people, go see people. When the calendar says, get up, don't sleep in. And I think that most people that have a little bit of freedom, it's easy to make bad choices, skip out early when no one's looking over your shoulder in commission sales. And that's something that I just never did. And fell into a couple of great mentors along the way. You've talked to probably a few of them already, but, here I am, and now I'm 42, and I'm a family of 5. I've got 3 kids, and I've worked really, really diligently the last 5 years in making sure I work no more than 40 hours a week so I can be with my kids and coach them and still travel with them and not be a slave to the business. And still produce. Actually, last year it was my highest production year ever, still did it in 40 hours a week and still coach all my kids. So
that's amazing.
That's where I'm at today.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I think what you made a really great point is if your calendar says, call this many people, you should call that many people, go see people. I think people want to say they'll do something, but then they just never do it. I think that's a really great point. I'm so glad that you brought that up.
Cool.
Yeah. What do you think was the best piece of advice that you had ever given? You mentioned a few, learning a lot from great mentors. What do you think is the best piece of advice or best thing that they kind of taught you?
Single best, I don't know if I could give you a single best. I can probably give you a personal, and I can probably give you a business. Personal one, I got marriage counseling before I got married, and I was very fortunate that the Pastor Kars told me, he said, Josh, look, when you go to work, if you give anything less than 100% at work, you're stealing from your wife and your future kids. If you go home and you give anything less than 100%, then you're still stealing from your wife and your future kids. And so go to work and give 100% till you can't, and then leave, and then make sure you've got enough energy left to give 100% at home. So for personal advice, I find that most people are sacrificing in one area or the other. They're either so focused on work and their career that their relationships and their family and those that matter most are the ones that are paying the price for their success. Or on the flip side, I hate to say it, but I find that a lot of millennials and younger people are so focused on, living for the moment that they're not investing in their long-term career. And that's a problem. At the end of the day, if you can't pay for your own retirement, then my ass has to pay for your retirement. My taxes have to pay for your retirement. And that's not fair either, right? So it's that balance of give it at work as much as you can, put in your full 40, or if you can be successful as far as to make enough to pay your bills and set money aside for retirement and do that in 20 or 30 hours a week, that's awesome. That is not real for most people, though. And so put in your clean 40, go home and give a clean 40 at home, and then go to sleep and sleep a clean 40,
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really important. That balance is something that is kind of hard for people, but it's the single most important thing in life, no matter what you do. Balancing the work and the family and stuff like that. I think you're so right about that. Is there anything, any piece of advice that you'd give to any 17-year-olds out there who are kind of on that cusp of, just graduating and as high school and then getting into the quote unquote real world, business world? Is there any skills or things you think they should learn or read before they kind of get started in that?
Yeah, the advice would be to dream bigger sooner. That's for sure the advice. Dream bigger sooner.
That's great advice.
The assumption that you have to work a 30-year career to finally get the title is a BS assumption. And so, it's pursuit. Now, be really clear, mastery requires 10,000 hours. And so one thing that I also would tell people is try to figure out what you really love and then give it the full 10,000 hours before you jump ship. I see too many young people jumping from job to job to job to job, which will never let them be great at anything that they do, right? So find something you really love and just stick with it. And there's good days and there's bad days, but, don't quit so soon. I think about back when I was a kid in sports, and I quit in some sports earlier than I should have, looking back, because it got a little hard, or I realized I wasn't that great compared to my peers. But when you read books like Outliers, you recognize that the ones that stick it through and put in the extra work early typically are the ones that are the Hall of Famers. The ones that are naturally gifted at something typically fade in the light because when it gets hard, they quit early, right? And so, really sticking with something and seeing it through at the end. Now, don't compromise your morals and your beliefs. Obviously, it's not worth that, but it is worth a couple bad days to see how good you can really get at something. But, if I were to kind of give the big piece of advice on both sides, grit is the number one determining factor for success. It's the, I'll figure it out, I'll work through it, I'll get punched in the face, and I'll still keep coming mentality at whatever you're doing, right? But the flip side is the balance, because that grit usually comes at some sort of personal cost. The other in the spectrum is that you have to have a lot of gratitude and understand that, you're blessed already. Right now, right here, this is it. And, if you are enjoying good health right now, there's a whole lot of people that aren't. If you have a a good relationship right now. There's a whole lot of people that don't. If you, are at the beginning of a career, there's a whole lot of opportunity that you have that a lot of people don't. And so, don't always be looking for the next shiny star, and don't kid yourself that if I could finally make this much, then I'll be happy. When I get this title, then I'll be happy. That's all bullshit, right? It's like every goal I've ever hit ever in my life has never been as beautiful as I thought it would be when I set the goal. It doesn't mean don't set goals. So I'm telling you that it's a false belief that if I get there, then I'll be happy. That's a false belief. I do think you should hard charge at anything because, again, if you don't give 100% at work, then don't freaking be there, right?
Yeah.
But as far as habits go and skill sets that you asked about, communication skills are lacking with people that have their nose stuck in a freaking phone. It's just the truth. Eye contact freaking matters. You want something, go walk up and look them in the eyeballs, shake their hand, and say, "This is what I'd like."
Yeah.
Get you a whole lot further in life than hiding behind a freaking text or Facebook or DM, right? Like, it's just stupid, that direction that the world's gone to, and younger generations will be punished for that in the future. So communication skills would be paramount. So signing up for like Toastmasters, even if you don't like to speak in front of people, that kind of stuff really does matter. And the second thing I would tell people is financial skills. The schooling system fails young Americans. It fails young Americans. They'll teach you all sorts of things that are concepts that can be useful in certain fields, and it's great to be well-rounded and know a little bit about a lot of things. That being said, I always go back to, you're going to help the world around you by picking up the tab, by not paying, but contributing to charities of your choice, and by being able to pay taxes, or you're going to be on the tit of the nation, and somebody else is going to have to pick up your tab, and somebody else has to pay taxes to pay for your handouts. And the second is not America. That is not who we are. I am all about writing a big check and volunteering my time for charities of my choice. I think the government bumbles and misuses and misallocates our funds, proven by printing up trillions and trillions and trillions of fake money to give in government handout programs, which I'm all about helping people up. But the unaccountable checks out and hope it works out mentality is something that is going to skew the belief system of young Americans. Young Americans must be reliant on themselves. They must not expect somebody else to help them out. And that self-reliance is an American belief system since the beginning of our country. And if we don't get back to being able to balance the budget, understanding that delayed gratification is the way to the future of finance, meaning you don't need the newest freaking phone that's a $1,300 freaking phone when you're 16 years old. You don't need it.
Yeah.
A flip phone works. Go play in the backyard. Go talk to your friends. Go swimming in the pool or in the river. I don't care. But when people are so used to the instantaneous gratification, the keeping up with the Joneses, then somebody's going to have to foot that bill down the road. And so I would say that the working on the financial skills, the learning the personal family budget, which the simplicity of it is, spend less than you earn. Don't sign up for every handout out there. Be proud of being able to write your own check in your own way. That's the advice I would give to young Americans.
I think that's amazing advice. Definitely a lot of great nuggets and stuff that everyone can work on and should work on. I really like your point about financial and communication. I did a bunch of Toastmaster type things growing up, so I totally understand and I totally see the value of what you're saying. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and talking to me today. I learned a lot of great things, definitely a lot of great information and stuff that is very helpful for my future, so I really appreciate it.
Well, kudos to you for actually seeking to understand in the first place. You'll go very far in life, I promise you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You have a good one, too. Bye-bye.